The president said he's disappointed in Russia and told us he thinks he'll have a major statement to make about Russia on Monday. Though when pressed, he did not say what that statement will be. The president also said he just made a deal today with NATO in which he says the U.S. will send weapons to Ukraine through NATO, and NATO is, quote, paying for those weapons 100%, including the Patriot air defenses that Ukraine has been asking for, and that NATO will distribute them. We reached out to NATO tonight. No response yet, Tom.
This is my video update on this Friday afternoon, July the 11th, coming to you from Moskva.
I am not affiliated with the Duran in any way, but I like to use different videos for introductions. Anyway, just to get us to our topic. And what is the topic? The topic is of Trump sending more weapons to Ukraine. Trump campaigned on a promise, and it's not shocking. It really isn't. Without further ado, let's just get into the clip, and then we'll go in and look at the details, okay? Thank you for everybody who's watching. Please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and the notification bell.
Talk about some news. And let's start things off with an Axios article with the title, Trump plans to send Ukraine weapons via NATO allies. Now, according to Axios, back in May, Trump, Zelensky, Stammer, and Macron at a NATO summit, they came up with a plan where NATO was going to buy weapons from the U.S., and those weapons were then going to be given to Project Ukraine. The one requirement, according to Axios, that the U.S. had of NATO was that the weapons that were sold to NATO had to be given to Ukraine. NATO would not be allowed to keep any of those weapons. And Axios is reporting that the weapons that NATO is going to purchase is not only going to be defensive weapons, but we're also talking about offensive weapons as well, though Axios did not get into any details of the weapons that are going to be sold to NATO. So U.S. weapons sold to NATO, and NATO sends those weapons to Ukraine, which is very misleading because the United States pretty much funds NATO. So at the end of the day, what we are talking about is U.S. money given to NATO, funding NATO, which will be used to purchase U.S. weapons, and those weapons will then go to Project Ukraine.
That was the explanation that I needed badly, because when I first heard this, I was like, don't we like really fund NATO like a lot? Like, isn't that why people, there was a time when Trump was like, he wanted to take us out of NATO and all of that. I don't hear those kind of talks anymore, and that's fine. And I was like, I feel like we kind of fund NATO. So I kind of feel like that we're buying those weapons for Ukraine anyway. And so for the person who says, okay, well, we're funding NATO anyway, so then no, but it's the same thing. Tax dollars going into NATO to send weapons to Ukraine. It's just there's a middleman.
So it's the United States sending weapons to Ukraine. That's what this really is. And the reason they did all of this, the reason they're laundering these weapons through NATO, because that's effectively what they're doing, the United States, the Trump administration, is because Trump doesn't want to go to his base and break one of his campaign promises, which was that he was not going to do the stupid things that Biden was doing with Project Ukraine, which was giving weapons to Zelensky and escalating the conflict with Russia. And now Trump can go to his base, and he can say that he's not giving weapons to Ukraine, but he is selling the weapons to NATO, and then NATO will give the weapons to Ukraine. So Trump is going to say, we're making money off of this. We're not doing the stupid things that Biden did, which was just to give weapons to Ukraine. That was so stupid. Biden was so stupid. What I'm doing, the great deal maker, the great negotiator, what I'm doing is that I am going to be selling the weapons to NATO, and then NATO is going to be giving those weapons to Project Ukraine. And then Trump is going to say that the reason he's doing this is because he tried to get some sort of a ceasefire with Putin, but he became very frustrated with Putin, and so he's decided to send those weapons, offensive and defensive, to the Zelensky regime.
So it is funny. It's a little funny because I've actually heard people say this. You know, I'm on Twitter and I go on Spaces and I listen. I've heard people say this. Well, Trump isn't going to, just stop a war and it makes him look bad the way he stops it. So he has to wait till, he looks good and then he stops. And I'm like, this is insane that people explain this as if it's normal that people should act like this about war. I want to go, again, to Twitter is like a really good place to go to get our, just a little bit more information about Trump and Putin. And look, at the end of the day, I mean, I personally am a person who understands that it's not just one, we don't live in a monarchy. And there's other people who, actually have more, there's a lot going on in different kind of in complexes, right? So we're not shocked. And now apparently this is some sort of leaked footage about Trump yelling about bombing people or something. I don't know. Hold on.
That he once had with President Putin. The audio obtained by the authors of a new book that is just out today. And for context, the president has long said that Putin would never have invaded Ukraine on his watch because of something he told him once privately. Trump had never revealed what that was.
I had a very strong conversation with President Putin, and he understood, and I won't go into the great details of the conversation because nobody has to know that. But I will tell you, it never, ever would have happened.
I don't want to say it, but did they fear me? I suspect they did.
Well, tonight we're learning those details as the audio reveals that Trump says that he threatened not just President Putin, but also China's President Xi Jinping. And this is what he told donors about what exactly that conversation looked like during a private fundraiser last year.
Putin said, if you go in Ukraine, we'll bomb the shit out of Moscow. I'm telling you.
So I'm going to be partial and say that, well, let me let the rest of it play.
Don't trust the public. So he goes like, I don't believe you. He said no way, and I said wait. And then he goes like, I don't believe you, but the truth is he believed me 10%. And I'm so good this. He believed me 10%. Then I went to President Xi of China. But I said the same thing to them. I said, if you go into Taiwan, I'm going to bomb the shit out of Beijing. He thought I was crazy. He said, you're going to bomb Beijing. I said, I have no choice. We're going to bomb Beijing. And he didn't believe me either, except 10%. And 10% is all you need. In fact, 5% would have been okay too. And we would have had a problem. We would have never had a problem.
So, and forgive this audio is like really choppy, but yeah, so, this is hilarious.
Понимаете, я уже общался и с одним
Said I've
президентом
already
США, и с
spoken to
другим.
3 U.S. presidents. They come and
Президенты
go,
приходят,
but
уходят, а политика не
politics, hold on a
меняется.
second. Because of the powerful bureaucracy, when a person is elected, they have some ideas. Then the people with briefcases arrive well dressed with dark suits, just like mine, except for the red tie. Okay, these people start explaining how things are done, which is so true. But and it's the point that I was making. But anyway, I do kind of think it's kind of funny, tongue in cheek to hear him say it like that. But at the end of the day, that is the thing. There's a lot of different complexes, so Trump could never stop this war that has already started. The clip that we heard, the leaked audio, I will be devil's advocate at least and say I already knew that story because I remember talking about it with my brother, like, yo, wow, Trump had told Putin he was gonna get, So it's kind of odd to me that it's odd to me that people are like, oh my God, this is new news. It's not new news. Like, I'm one of those, I stick with the truth. And the truth is that I heard this back in 22, excuse me. No, when did we go into Ukraine? 22. So I had already heard this, and I was like, oh. Back then I did think it was like, oh, hey, whatever, But then as time went on and I started to see the kind of meddling that we were doing in Ukraine and everything, I kind of was like, okay, that's not really a good way to go at all, right? But I had heard that story already. Anyway, guys, keep it locked right here. More to come with this kind of news where we stay on top of the geopolitical conversation and decisions that are being made, and we just analyze them together. I'll see you guys at the next one. Bye.